Nathan Cole stepped through the rusted school gate without an entourage, without cameras, without the polished distance that usually followed his name. To the world, he was a billionaire philanthropist. Here, he was just another visitor, one more adult passing through a schoolyard that had learned not to expect much from adults. The sun hung high over the Lagos sky, bright and unforgiving. Children spilled into the open courtyard as the lunch bell rang, their voices colliding in excited noise. Plastic bowls appeared, wrapped food, nylon bags passed between friends. The smell of rice and stew drifted through the air. Nathan paused, not because of the noise, but because of the silence. Near the far edge of the courtyard, a little girl remained seated at her desk by the open classroom window. She didn't move when the bell rang. She didn't rush. She didn't look around to see who was watching. She simply reached into her school bag and pulled out a pink lunchbox, placing it carefully on the desk as if it mattered. Nathan's steps slowed. He told himself it was nothing. Children skipped meals sometimes. But his eyes stayed on her as she opened the box and stared into it. Too long. Most children peeked, grabbed, and ate. This girl just looked. Her name tag caught the light. Amelia. Nathan felt an odd tightening in his chest, the kind that came before a memory he didn't want. He ignored it and kept walking until he saw her close the lunchbox again, slowly, and tuck it back in her bag without eating anything. That was when he turned. He approached quietly, shoes crunching lightly on the gravel. Amelia sensed him and stood at once, hands folded in front of her uniform. "Good afternoon, sir," she said, her voice respectful, practiced. Nathan nodded. "Good afternoon. Aren't you eating?" She shook her head. "No, sir." He glanced toward the courtyard. "Lunch break has started." "Yes, sir." There was no complaint in her tone. No sadness. Just fact. Nathan gestured gently toward her bag. "May I see your lunchbox?" Amelia hesitated for half a second. Her fingers tightened on the strap. Then she reached in and brought it out again, placing it on the desk between them. Nathan opened it. Empty. Clean. No crumbs. No stain. No forgotten grain of rice. The kind of clean that came from careful washing, not neglect. For a brief moment, Nathan felt disoriented. His mind searched for explanations that wouldn't hurt. "Did you already eat?" he asked. Amelia shook her head. "Did you forget your food today?" Another shake. "Then why is it empty?" She lowered her eyes. "So nobody will ask." The courtyard noise faded. A flash of another place slammed into Nathan's mind. London, decades ago. A small kitchen. A cracked sink. His mother rinsing an empty lunchbox late at night, humming softly so he wouldn't hear her cry. Her voice, calm but firm. "Carry anyway. It makes you look like everyone else." Nathan's breath caught. His hand rose to his face before he realized what he was doing. The tears came fast, unexpected, unstoppable. Amelia's eyes widened. "I'm sorry, sir," she said quickly. "I didn't mean." Nathan knelt so they were eye to eye, blinking hard. "You didn't do anything wrong." The lunchbox sat open between them, small and harmless, yet heavier than any contract Nathan had ever signed. And somewhere deep inside him, a door he thought was sealed forever creaked open. Nathan stayed, kneeling long after the noise of the courtyard returned. Children ran past them, laughing, trading bites of food, unaware that something irreversible had just happened beside an open window. Amelia shifted slightly, uncomfortable with the attention. "Sir, may I go now?" Nathan realized he was staring. He nodded quickly. "Yes, of course." She closed the lunchbox, slid it into her bag, and walked away with measured steps, as if she had learned long ago how not to draw notice to herself. Nathan watched her go. Something about her calm unsettled him more than tears would have. She didn't beg. She didn't explain. She didn't look back. The school principal, Mrs. Okery, had been watching from a distance. When she approached, her face carried the careful concern of someone who had seen many stories like this, but had learned not to interfere unless invited. "She's one of our brightest," the principal said softly, following Nathan's gaze. "Never misses school. Never complains." Nathan stood slowly. "Her name is Amelia." Mrs. Okery nodded. "Yes. She always comes early. Leaves late too. Helps clean the classroom sometimes." Does she eat at all during the day? Nathan asked. The principal hesitated. That pause was answer enough. Sometimes other children share, she said, but Amelia rarely accepts. She says others need it more. Another quiet blow. Later, in the principal's office, Nathan listened as details filled in gaps his mind had already begun connecting. Amelia's father, Daniel, had been a mechanic. Skilled. Honest. He fell ill suddenly. Hospital bills grew faster than Grace, Amelia's mother, could earn. Daniel died at home one night, while Amelia slept in the next room. Grace never recovered financially. Emotionally, she barely allowed herself to try. She cleans offices at night, Mrs. Okery said. Washes clothes on weekends. She insists Amelia comes to school clean, even if there's no food. Nathan leaned back, closing his eyes briefly. Another flashback surfaced. Him at 9 years old, pretending to nap so his mother could eat the last piece of bread. The way hunger sharpened hearing. The way shame settled quietly, like dust, into a child's bones. Nathan opened his eyes. Why didn't anyone tell us? He asked. We did, Mrs. Okery replied gently. In reports. In forms. In numbers. Nathan swallowed. He had skimmed those reports 100 times. Statistics. Percentages. Needs. They had never looked like a pink lunchbox on a wooden desk. When Nathan left the school that day, he didn't return to his office. He sat in his car outside the gate for nearly an hour, staring at the children as they left. He watched Amelia walk beside her classmates, her bag light, her steps steady. His phone buzzed with messages from executives. He ignored them. That night, in his quiet penthouse overlooking the city, Nathan couldn't bring himself to eat. The food on his table felt obscene. He stood at the window instead, city lights glittering like a life he no longer recognized. He opened a drawer and pulled out something he hadn't touched in years. An old lunchbox. Metal. Dented. Faded blue. He ran his fingers over it, remembering the weightlessness. The pretending. The silence. And in that moment, Nathan understood this wasn't about charity. It was about a promise he had broken long ago, to never become someone who forgot. By morning, he had already decided, but he hadn't yet realized how far that decision would reach. Nathan arrived at Amelia's neighborhood the next afternoon, dressed plainly again, avoiding the luxury car that usually announced his presence. The street was narrow, dusty, and lined with low houses that had seen better days. Children ran barefoot between alleys, calling to one another. Laundry flapped on lines like small flags in the sunlight. He stopped in front of a modest yellow house, the paint peeling near the door. A woman, her hands rough from years of cleaning and laundry, was scrubbing the steps. Grace looked up as he approached, her eyes narrowing in cautious curiosity. Good afternoon, Nathan said softly. Grace blinked, adjusting her headscarf. Afternoon, sir. How can I help you? Nathan hesitated, choosing his words carefully. I'm here about Amelia. Her shoulders stiffened. Yes, sir. He took a step closer, noticing the fatigue etched into her face. There were lines he hadn't seen before, a story told silently of years of survival. I know about the lunchbox, he said simply. Grace froze, then lowered her gaze, folding her arms over her chest. I wanted her to feel normal, she admitted quietly. She shouldn't stand out. She's a child, sir. She shouldn't have to worry. Nathan nodded, feeling the weight of her sacrifice. I understand. I remember what that feels like. Grace glanced up at him, suspicion mingling with curiosity. What do you mean? A memory surged forward. Nathan at 9 years old, in the dim kitchen of his mother's apartment in London. A small metal lunchbox, clean but empty, waiting for him. He had learned to carry it without complaint while she worked long hours to feed him secretly. The same quiet dignity. The same unspoken sacrifice. I carry the memory of that lunchbox, he said, and I've never forgotten it. Grace looked at him, eyes wide, trying to measure whether this man, this billionaire, understood more than just her daughter's hunger. He did. Would you allow me to help? Nathan asked, his voice steady. Not for show, not for statistics, just to make sure Amelia never goes hungry at school. Grace hesitated, pride warring with desperation. Finally, she nodded. I can't promise she'll ever believe it's okay. I'm not asking her to, Nathan replied. Just let me try. He left that day with a plan. Not donations, not press releases. Quiet, sustained help. Meals at school, arranged so Amelia never stood out. Grace received steady work at one of Nathan's companies, hours tailored so she could rest at night instead of cleaning offices. Yet Nathan knew the story didn't end there. Every time he thought of Amelia, he saw the empty lunchbox, her hands folded politely in front of her, her small frame quietly holding up a household. That night, he sat at his desk, reviewing notes on the school program he would personally oversee. Numbers were useless. He needed names, faces, stories. Amelia became a symbol, yes, but more importantly, she became a mirror, a reflection of a past self, a reminder of why he had built everything he had. And somewhere in that reflection was the understanding that a single moment, a child's quiet sacrifice, could move a grown man to tears. The next day, Nathan returned to the school, carrying a stack of freshly prepared lunches for Amelia and her classmates. He walked through the courtyard, invisible to most, but Amelia's eyes found him. She looked unsure, cautious, but there was a flicker of curiosity in her gaze. Nathan placed the lunches on a table near her desk. She approached slowly, fingers brushing the packages. He watched silently, resisting the urge to intervene. It was her choice, her dignity, that mattered. The quiet sacrifice, the strength of Amelia, the perseverance of Grace, was about to become a turning point, though Nathan did not yet know the full depth of what it would unlock. That evening, Nathan could not focus on business as usual. The penthouse, usually filled with the hum of assistants and calls, felt hollow. He sank into the leather chair by the window, city lights twinkling below, a stark contrast to the schoolyard and Amelia's quiet resilience. He closed his eyes, letting memories flood back. The first memory, London, his childhood apartment. A 9-year-old Nathan sat cross-legged on the cold floor, staring into his metal lunchbox. Empty. His stomach grumbled, but he said nothing. He had watched his mother in the kitchen, hands trembling as she tore the last piece of bread in half. She smiled, trying to make the moment light. "Eat your lunch slowly," she said, though she ate the smaller half herself. Another memory, a teenage Nathan walking home from school, dodging puddles and pedestrians, holding a brown paper bag with a single sandwich inside. His father, long gone, had left debts and lessons in equal measure. The sandwiches, though meager, were always prepared with care, each bite reminding Nathan of scarcity, dignity, and the silent lessons of survival. He blinked and another vision came. The first time he had visited Lagos as a young entrepreneur. A bustling city, bright with possibilities, yet brimming with contradictions. Children selling peanuts, small barefoot girls clutching empty lunchboxes, mothers working double shifts. Nathan had seen the pain, but never the quiet bravery of Amelia until now. Back to reality. He opened his eyes to the penthouse. He could almost hear the soft scraping of Grace's broom against her doorstep, smell the faint aroma of school lunches in the courtyard. Amelia's face surfaced, small, determined, untouched by complaints. She carried her emptiness with pride, dignity forged in necessity. Nathan realized why the tears had come to school. This was not a story of hunger alone. It was a mirror of the past, a reflection of all the children who had walked quietly through life, unnoticed. Amelia's empty lunchbox was a signal, a call to action, a reminder that wealth, privilege, and power carried responsibility beyond charity. Responsibility to see the invisible. He decided then that the feeding program could not just be meals. It had to be seamless, dignified, quiet. He did not want Amelia to feel singled out. He remembered his mother teaching him that dignity is maintained in silence, courage often unacknowledged, and lessons are learned best without spectacle. For weeks, he arranged deliveries, coordinated schedules, and personally oversaw the discreet distribution of meals at the school. Grace received her work assignment, carefully timed so that her nights were no longer endless cycles of cleaning and laundry. Amelia received her lunches like every other child, with no fanfare, no announcement, just quietly, every day. Yet, Nathan also knew this would not be enough. There were deeper scars, memories of scarcity, shame, and invisible burdens that Amelia carried. He needed to understand her world more intimately, to see what shaped her quiet strength. That night, he lay awake, recalling every detail. The pink lunch box, the polished hands of Grace, the small shoulders of Amelia stooped just slightly under responsibility. Each memory intertwined with flashes of his own childhood, binding past and present into a sharp, almost painful clarity. He understood the weight of a single empty lunchbox. Not just food, but the story behind it, the courage it took to bear it quietly, and the compassion it demanded from those who saw it. Tomorrow, he would return. Tomorrow, he would meet Amelia again, and the invisible barriers of her world would begin to shift. Though neither of them fully understood how transformative this small, quiet act could be. The following morning, Nathan arrived at the school early, before the children had begun to arrive. The sun was just climbing over the horizon, bathing the courtyard in gold. Shadows stretched long across the concrete, softening the hard edges of the playground. He moved quietly, carrying a stack of small, neatly wrapped meals. Today, he wanted to see Amelia without interruption. Amelia appeared moments later, walking along the familiar path with her small backpack slung over one shoulder. She slowed when she noticed Nathan, her eyes flicking cautiously toward him. Unlike before, there was no hesitation in her stride, just a quiet curiosity. Nathan knelt to her level, offering the lunches without a word. Amelia's hands hovered over the packages, unsure if she should accept. "It's for everyone," Nathan said gently. "No one sees who gets it. You just take it if you're hungry." Amelia's fingers finally closed around one, the weight of it foreign yet reassuring. She nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of her mouth. As she walked toward her classroom, Nathan's mind drifted again, this time to memories of his own parents. His father had died when he was young, leaving him a fragile inheritance of lessons about integrity and self-sufficiency. His mother had insisted he never let others see his need. Every meal shared, every coin saved, every sacrifice endured, it all mirrored the world Amelia and Grace had built quietly, far from the gaze of the affluent. Nathan followed discreetly, watching as Amelia sat at her desk. He noticed the way she arranged her books, how her uniform, though simple, was meticulously neat. Each small act a signal of discipline, resilience, and the weight she carried silently. During class, Nathan's attention shifted to Grace, who had arrived to drop off her younger child. She waved discreetly, her eyes glimmering with cautious relief. Nathan realized that this woman had lived under constant strain, balancing work, child-rearing, and dignity. Every act of her life was a silent testament to perseverance. The memory that hit hardest was of his mother, preparing lunch in silence while he pretended to sleep so she could eat. He had forgotten the quiet dignity of that act until now. The parallels between past and present were undeniable. Amelia, Grace, and the empty lunchbox were conduits of a story he had long buried. As Nathan stood to leave, Amelia's gaze found his again. She didn't wave, didn't speak, but there was a subtle acknowledgement in her eyes, a recognition of someone who understood without words. Nathan walked back toward his car, heart heavy yet invigorated. He knew this was more than charity. It was connection, an invisible thread tying him to a family whose courage mirrored his own childhood experiences. He had already begun planning the next steps. Not donations, not publicity, sustainable support that preserved dignity. Educational opportunities, small interventions, and personal mentorship. A carefully orchestrated effort to ensure Amelia never had to carry that weight alone again. But there was one more thing Nathan couldn't ignore. The emotional toll, the silent suffering, the invisible sacrifices, all of it demanded something more personal. He needed to witness the world Amelia lived in beyond school walls. He needed to see Grace at home, the small rooms, the laundry, the careful counting of coins for tomorrow's meals. That afternoon, Nathan drove slowly through the neighborhood, observing without intruding. Children ran barefoot. Women carried buckets. Streets were narrow, noisy, alive. Every detail reinforced the truth he already knew. Amelia's world was one of courage shaped by scarcity, dignity forged through sacrifice. He parked discreetly near Grace's house, watching as she swept the steps. The sun reflected off the laundry lines, casting intricate shadows. Nathan realized that the invisible sacrifices he had witnessed, the empty lunchbox, the quiet resolve, were far more powerful than any boardroom decision he had ever made. Tomorrow, he would meet Grace properly. He would learn her story, understand the full scope of the burden she bore, and begin to weave a support system strong enough to lift the weight from their shoulders without shattering their dignity. The invisible thread connecting past and present, childhood and adulthood, billionaire and ordinary family, had never been more real. And Nathan knew that once he acted, nothing would remain the same. The following evening, Nathan arrived at Grace's modest home. The sun was low, casting a warm, amber glow across the street. Children's laughter drifted from nearby alleys, mixing with the scent of fried snacks and distant exhaust fumes. He stepped lightly, careful not to draw attention, carrying nothing more than a small package for Amelia. Grace opened the door, surprise and wariness in her eyes. "Sir, I didn't expect." Nathan held up a hand. "I just wanted to see Amelia, and to meet you properly." Her shoulders relaxed slightly, though tension lingered. "Please come in." Inside, the apartment was tidy but worn. Laundry hung across the room, a small table with remnants of dinner pushed to one side. Amelia sat on the floor, arranging her school books, a careful order that spoke of routine and discipline. Nathan knelt to her level. "I brought something for you." Amelia looked up, eyes wide, and reached for the package hesitantly. She opened it to find a small meal, fresh and bright, neatly wrapped. She looked at Nathan, confused. I can't take this, sir." "Other children." "Just take it," he said gently. "No one will know. This is just for you." Her fingers closed around it, and for the first time, her small shoulders relaxed. Nathan saw the faintest flicker of a smile, the kind that begins quietly, cautiously. Grace watched silently, a tear sliding down her cheek. I don't know how to thank you." Nathan shook his head. "You've already done everything that matters. You've raised a brave, disciplined, kind child. That's more than most can manage." The room fell silent, filled only with the soft sounds of breathing, distant street noise, and the hum of evening. Nathan's thoughts drifted to his own childhood, the empty lunch boxes, the sacrifices, the quiet dignity that had shaped him. He realized that in this small home, with its peeling walls and frayed curtains, he had found a mirror of his past and a chance to reshape the future. "Amelia," he said softly, "I want to help. Not for show, not for fame, not for recognition. Just help." Her eyes shimmered with cautious hope. Why me?" Nathan's voice faltered, remembering the first moment he had seen her empty lunchbox. "Because I know what it feels like. Because I've carried that weight myself. And because no child should bear it alone." Grace blinked, the weight of exhaustion giving way to relief. I didn't expect anyone to understand. Most just see the numbers, the statistics." Nathan shook his head. "I see people. Faces. Stories. Hunger is more than food. It's dignity. It's courage. It's love." At that moment, Amelia's small hand reached for his. Nathan felt the warmth and trust in that simple gesture. The invisible barriers between them, the billionaire and the small family, began to dissolve. Later that week, Nathan quietly established a program to ensure all the children at the school had access to healthy meals, while Grace received a stable, dignified income. Amelia continued to excel, but now without the quiet anxiety that had shadowed her days. Nathan visited often, not as a donor, but as a witness, as someone who understood the invisible burdens of growing up too quickly. Months later, during a routine visit, Nathan stood watching Amelia run across the courtyard, laughing with friends. She carried a bright, full lunchbox. He realized that something small, a pink lunchbox, empty and silent, had transformed lives. Not because of money, but because someone had finally seen. Nathan turned to leave, but paused. The memory of the first glance into that empty box returned. Tears came again, but this time, they were different. They were gratitude, relief, recognition of the courage and love he had witnessed. He understood now what he had long forgotten. Real wealth is not measured in contracts or accounts. It is measured in lives touched, dignity restored, and courage recognized. In the quiet of that Lagos evening, with the city alive around him, Nathan Cole finally wept for the right reason. Not for sorrow, not for loss, but for hope. For a little girl, her mother, and a small, pink lunchbox that had carried the weight of the world and changed it.